fast forward a week, and I've got, I think, all of the parts for the car to put it back together. It's a mix of used OEM, new OEM, and new aftermarket parts. So if we look on the old hood that's here, I've got all new aftermarket lower bumpers, the middle grille, fog light bezels, new OEM grille. So what I found, I've got a spreadsheet of all of the parts that I needed with the OEM part numbers, and then I just searched the cheapest OEM place to find them, get a price, and then search for the aftermarket, and pretty much whoever's the cheapest wins. And surprisingly, in some cases, the OEM wins. So this lower grille, for example, it's cheaper to buy a new OEM with my discount than to buy an aftermarket one. So you just have to play the game. I also found from experience that just go to eBay and save myself some time. So there are a number of aftermarket resellers for parts, but all of this stuff is on eBay for the same price as those places. So just go to eBay, see if you can find it. If not, then just go another route. I was able to get a used OEM headlight, so it fits fine. Those are parts that came off the car that we'll reuse. Got an aftermarket belly pan. This piece, it's on the parts diagram. I don't know where it goes. I thought from the parts diagram that it was just a plastic air deflector, but it's like an 1/8 inch steel plate. So I thought maybe, okay, that was for a Trailhawk version, but the OEM catalog shows that it applies to all variants. So I'll just have to figure out where that goes. Got a new radiator, condenser, all of the air deflectors that we're missing, and then we got our maintenance items, oil filter, cabin filter, and rear brake pads. Now, the only other maintenance item that I had to get were tires. I was able to find Goodyear Assurance All Seasons with matching tread depth to the one tire. So once we swap those out, I'll have a pretty much brand new set of tires on the car. And those came from Champ Tires for $190. That was way cheaper than buying a new set of tires. Now, for the AC system, this uses the new R1234YF, environmentally friendly bullshit. So my neighbor, he rebuilds a lot of cars. He has all of the setup for our R134A. So I went to a local shop to get a price, $625 to recharge this car. So I said no thank you, and went to Harbor Freight and bought the R1234YF gauge set, borrowed my neighbor's vacuum pump, went to AutoZone and bought 3 cans of Honeywell R1234YF refrigerant, and I will do it myself for about $220. So we're gonna go that route instead. So I guess with all of the parts here, pretty much the only thing that's not in front of us is the bumper cover. It's over getting painted along with the outer grille, but everything else for the car is here. So I can get all the mechanicals sorted out, I can get all the maintenance done, and then early next week when the bumper cover is ready, I can put it on. So first step, put in the radiator, get the system bled, and get the condenser in there and get it recharged. Sitting on the car now is the replacement hood. So that was a used hood, and it matches pretty well. It's in good condition. I just need to buff it out. It's got some light scratches in it from being at a salvage yard and some writing on it, but for the price, it's way cheaper than getting a new one and having it painted, or even a used one and getting it painted. That took a few hours, but that was only because I reused the coolant, but I ran it through a strainer before I put it back in the car, and since how I didn't have a good way to strain it, I was running it through a paper towel and it just took forever. But I refilled it with everything that was taken out. I'm sure I'll have to top it off. There's a bleeder screw in the top of the radiator on the passenger side, and there's a bleeder screw up here. I pulled both of those out to get as much air out of the system as possible. Ran the car for about 15 minutes. It came up to temperature. It's blowing hot air. I don't see anything leaking, but it'll probably take a few temperature cycles if something is going to start. So I'll probably run it up and down the road a little bit before I put the front bumper on it. That way I can inspect the connections over here. And if I have to do something with the radiator, it's a lot easier to service. So now the next thing, I guess I will get a vacuum started on the AC system, and seeing how that's going to take an hour or so, I can do an oil change. I can probably do I've got my little mud flaps to put on, so I can work on some of the maintenance items while that's drawing a vacuum. I got everything set up. You can hear the vacuum pump running. It's pretty simple. The gauge set comes with a little manual. Just connect everything, kick it on. You can see the humidity coming out of the system. So we'll just let this run for a while. It's pulling a negative vacuum, both gauges. So let this run for about an hour and shut it off, close the valves, make sure it holds a vacuum, and then we can recharge it. I'm ready to start recharging the system. This really isn't that hard. Like I said, Honeywell has an excellent YouTube video showing the step-by-step procedure of recharging the R1234 YF system. So I made a list here, step-by-step what to do, and I had the vacuum pump running yesterday. I left it run for about 2 hours, shut it off, closed the valves, and let it sit overnight. And the valves have not budged, or the gauges have not budged. So we've got a good system here. So I've disconnected the pump, I've got it sitting on the can. So now we need to make sure we keep track of how many grams of refrigerant go in the system. So that's why we've got the kitchen scale here. And we'll turn it on. All right, tare it, it's in grams. And then we weigh the can. Then we need to note that, and according to the tutorial, take 15% of that, and that's how many grams need to go in. Then we shut it off, let it sit, watch the gauges, make sure it doesn't lose any. So that's just a leak check, and then we can continue on monitoring how many grams of refrigerant go in until we put in, I think it's 438 grams, whatever's on the splash shield. It took a while, but the AC system is charged and it seems to be working. It's blowing very cold air, even though it's 70 degrees right now, so it's not super hot, but it seems to be working okay. Now, I did have an issue with the refrigerant going in very slowly. I ended up having to warm the cans in hot water, so I kept having to, I would put it on the scale, let it run, it would put about 20 grams of refrigerant in, then I'd have to warm it in a bucket, and then just repeat and keep adding 20 grams, and keep track of it on my sheet how much was actually in it until I got to the 482 that was required. But it seems to be okay. We'll keep an eye on it. The pressures all looked good according to the charts online. Everything was up where it should be. So we'll let it go. I'm gonna take it for a ride down the road, make sure it gets up to temperature and the thermostat opens so that we get some coolant through the radiator. Because I'm very concerned with this connection. It seems to be a little loose. So yeah, I don't have much faith in this lower connection. The upper one, it doesn't seem too bad. Oh, look, there's already coolant coming out of it. Yeah, I'm probably gonna be returning this radiator, having to put another one in. As much as I love doing a project once, why not do it twice? So the original radiator, replacement radiator that I bought off of eBay, I've done that on several cars and haven't had any issues, but this one is, I don't know, this lower connection is not quite the right size. The lower hose rocks on it and it's dripping. So I spent a little more and got a Denso one, which is also made in Taiwan. So it may be the exact same radiator. We'll see when I put it in, but everything's off of the front. So there shouldn't be too bad of a job to swap it out. Even though the condenser's in it, I can move it off to the side. Maybe maybe take this bracket off, and then I can kind of lay it down on the ground out of the way without stressing any of the hoses.
I was able to reuse the coolant and made a huge mess, but I was able to reuse the coolant. It pretty much filled the bottle. And then I took the bleeder, well, the bleeder is already out up there. And then I took a very small piece of tube and filled up that hose. That goes into the car for the heater. Topped that off, put the screw back in, and took it down the road, got it good and warmed up. So the thermostat's open. So I'll just let it sit overnight and cool down. And then the coolant bottle should go down some more, and then I can top it off with Mopar coolant. I've taken it on a few extended test drives, and so far, so good. No leaks, no drips or anything. I went ahead and put the bumper reinforcement and all of the air deflectors back in. So the only thing I'm waiting on is the bumper cover. So once that's back from the paint shop, I can put the front end back together. So I guess in the meantime, I will just go ahead and give it a detail. As we've seen before, it's in really nice shape. There's not that much to do. So when it's out in the sun, you can see a little bit of, you can kind of see it on the chrome. There's some water spots, some light surface scratches, nothing terrible, it's white, so you hardly see it. And if it wasn't for the used hood that I got that's a little dull and dirty from sitting in the salvage yard, I probably wouldn't do anything with the rest of the car, but I'll just buff everything out real quick with a single step, probably glaze sealer, and then the foam can and wax on top, and it should look pretty good. The interior, I think last time I showed the interior, it was full of parts. I've done nothing with the interior except add all-weather floor mats, and I don't think I'm going to do much to this either. The seats look fine. The driver door panel is a little dirty, so I'll scrub it a little bit. But I think that's really the only thing I have to do with the interior. But there's really no sense in recording that stuff because there's nothing to see. So we'll pick this up after the exterior's done and when I go to put the bumper cover on. Quick intermission. I washed it in Dawn dish soap to get any grease, wax, whatever's on it off of the car, and then clay barred it. And that's where we are at the moment. So the paint is nice and smooth now. And we can see the condition of the hood. It's really not that bad. We've got some scratches, some stuff here that's on the paint. This should all buff out pretty nice. Some dull spots here. That should all come out without too much trouble. The sides of the car, in past videos, if you've watched them, I've mentioned taking into account what the car is for and how much time to spend on it. So this is going to be a daily driver and it's white, so we're not going to spend that much time detailing it. Really the only thing that you can notice, and it's mostly noticeable on the top part of the quarter in the back, is some water spots from hard water. And when you look down the side of it, pretty much from here down, it looks fine. There's no water spots. So I'm probably just going to do a quick single step correction from here up, not including the roof, because you really can't see the roof. So yeah, pretty much just this area and the hood. So we'll buff all of that out, and then the whole car will get a coat of the foam can and wax. I'm not even going to bother with sealer, glaze, all of that stuff, because it won't make a difference on this car. And then all the black parts, those get 303.
I finished up the hood. I started with the correction compound, so this is what I'm using. McGuire's correction compound with the microfiber pad. And it worked pretty well, except there were a few spots that had some fairly deep scratches. So I got out the heavy cutting pad and the heavy cutting compound and got that brightened up pretty well. There's two pretty deep scratches here and here. I could probably wet sand that out along with some of these other marks that you can see in the paint, but I don't think it's worth it. So we'll just leave it as is. Once it's outside, it'll look good. Now when I put this hood on, remember it was a used hood.
It was fairly yellow compared to the fender, but after washing it and buffing it out, it's pretty close. So I don't think anybody would notice that. Actually, nobody probably would have noticed it before, but I could see it. But no, I think it came out pretty nice, and it saved me from having to paint a different color used one or getting a new one and painting it. So I guess we'll just continue down the sides. The hood was the worst thing by far, so the rest of it should go pretty quick. And we've got the exterior detail done. You may ask, why did you do this with the bumper off of it? Well, you shouldn't wax or seal over fresh paint that hasn't been baked out. So the bumper cover just being painted yesterday, now is the perfect time to detail the car because I don't have to worry about getting wax on it. Now this is the foaming wax that I used. I got it on Amazon. It works pretty well. It gives a nice shine to a daily driver. And depending how often you wash the car, it lasts a few months. And when the water stops beating up like it will now, you just pull out the pressure washer, foam it on, and it takes you longer to pull everything out and put it away than to actually wax the car. And it gives a nice shine. So if we walk around it, I think this came out really nice for, let's say, a 3-hour detail on a daily driver. Got a nice shine. Pretty much all of the water spots came out of the paint. So I think this is a really good $9,500 car. I just need to touch up a little bit on the inside, a few spots that are scuffed on the light colored door and door sill, and a little bit on the center console. But the outside looks pretty good. All right, I'm back from the paint shop. I've got the outer grille. It came out really nice. Nice black color on that. I've got the inner grille and our trim rings here. Those were reused. Those weren't damaged in the accident. So I'll go ahead and assemble that, and then we'll move on to the bumper cover. Next up is the bumper cover. It came out pretty nice. I think the paint match should be pretty good. So now I just have to put all the pieces back together. Got the bumper absorber, got the little grille for the top. And over here we've got the lower valence, a support bar, a grille, fog light bezels, and then back here we've got daytime running lights, fog lights, and the wire harness. All of this hopefully will go back together pretty easily. The only issue is almost all of these parts are aftermarket. So there's probably going to be some wrestling to get it to fit. I did put the lights in it before I sent it over for paint, and those fit pretty well. Oh, I hate aftermarket parts so much. Nothing here fits right. The lower grille, it was all distorted, so you got to fight it to get it to line up with the aftermarket bumper cover, which isn't quite right. And the center grille doesn't fit for shit. Got a big gap over there. I can't get it to move over any. And this fog light bezel, I put it in first, and it already chipped the bumper cover. The other side, I've thought a little bit ahead and put some blue painter's tape around the edge, and it still chipped it up here. I hate these bumpers so much. So we'll see. I've never had an issue with an OEM one. I put an OEM one on my Honda Fit, and it's got 15,000 miles on it. Not one chip in it, not one issue with it. These aftermarket ones, I've always had problems with them, but I keep going back to them, mostly because this one was $113 and the OEM one was $500. So we'll see how it holds up. Maybe I just have to spend the money and replace at least the bumper cover, the painted part, with an OEM one, so the paint doesn't come off in sheets. Even though Brent did a really good job painting it, sometimes the paint just doesn't hold up on these. So with a few hours, I've got it all back together, and I think it came out really nice. Brent did a good job on the paint match, It's spot on. Everything lined up really well. We got nice gaps on the hood. And over here, the headlights all fit really well. The grille fits well to the headlights. The only issue I had when I was putting this together, there was a huge gap over here, like probably 3-4 millimeters. So I pulled this half of the bumper off, and I guess, I don't know if it was the accident or when they uninstalled the bumper at the body shop, they had pulled the bracket and it bent the front of the fender a little bit, so that bracket was wobbly. So I had to drill out the rivets and knock the fender back into position and then put a nut and a bolt on it, and that pulled it back up where it's supposed to be. So that was really the only issue installing the bumper. I did have an electrical issue. I checked the wire harness, I plugged all of the lights in, and then plugged just the harness with the lights into the car before I put the bumper together, and everything was working. So I put the bumper on, put the wheels on, the wheel well liners and everything in it, and I start the car to take it for a night drive to adjust the headlights, and I get a warning, left turn signal out. So shit. I put it back up on the lift, pull this wheel off, and the wheel well liner, take the bulb out, bulb looks fine. So pull the wheel and the wheel well liner on this side, pull that bulb out and swap it over here, because that one was working. Put it in there, still doesn't work. So it's like, shit, it's gotta be an electrical issue somewhere. I checked the voltage on the plug coming from the car, and with the turn signal on, it's giving 12 volts, alternating, because it's on, off, on, off. So I go to check the resistance of the wires going to the turn signal, and there's no pin in there. So the pin must have, the little tab that holds the pin in position in the plug must have bent or something, and it got pushed out. So luckily, I was able to just push the pin back in and hold the wire and plug it back in, and it's working now. But that was like an hour job and a real pain to put it back up on the lift, take everything apart, put everything back together. But at least it didn't involve rewiring anything. And here's our final product. I think it came out really nice for an appliance white generic SUV. I think it's pretty good looking. Got nice wheels. Again, the paint match is really good on the front. Very minimal detailing required. Shines really nice, especially under the dusk, almost dusk. Yeah, this came out pretty nice. Take a look on the interior. Dusty floor mat, I'll wipe that down later, but the door panel cleaned up nice. The seat was surprisingly grimy. You don't really notice it until you clean a spot, but that brightened up nice. The door sill cleaned up nice. The steering wheel looks like brand new. Has a nice fresh scent in here. So this is a pretty good car. We'll see how long it stays around. Just got the interior done, and then when I washed the outside, I also cleaned the engine bay. So this looks nice as well. So I guess with all of the detailing done and all of the accident repair done, we can take it for a drive to close out the video. All right, let's go for a quick drive. It's actually been a couple months since I finished the car. We've put over 5,000 miles on it in a couple months, and it's been a great car so far. I've had to add a half a quart of oil, which is nothing, considering how much oil these things typically drink. The only casualty it has suffered so far, a branch was sticking out in the road and hit the passenger headlight, so I still need to replace that. It broke the lens. But other than that, it's been fine. And it's been a great car. We've taken it on a few trips, like 4-hour trips, and it does over 30 miles per gallon on the highway. It's quiet, it's comfortable. It has plenty of space for a Stanley Cup, which is very important. It's very high, or it's high off the ground, so I feel very safe as well. And there's plenty of space in the back for dozens and dozens of Ugg boots. So it really is just the perfect car. But seriously, it is a pretty nice car, and for $9,500 all in, I really can't complain about anything. It's got CarPlay. It would be nice if it had heated seats, but you got to go up a trim level for that, I think. But got CarPlay, got automatic climate control. It's a pretty nice car. It is not fast by any stretch of the imagination, but the 2.4 four-cylinder and the 6-speed automatic that's in the front-wheel drive Compasses, that's a pretty good pairing. It shifts well, it holds gears. The 9-speed that I had in a Cherokee with this engine was absolutely awful. The thing shifted so hard it felt like it was going to just destroy the car. But the 6-speed is a pretty good transmission. But like I said, good fuel mileage. It's reasonably peppy. It'll do 80 miles an hour, no problem, 30 miles per gallon on the highway. It's quiet, it's comfortable. So I guess we can keep it around for a little while. It's really a pretty nice car. And with this quick drive, this project is done. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel to keep up with other projects going on around the garage.